that was good cornbread. It was crunchy. And the reason it was so crunchy was that it was made with a very special cornmeal grown and ground in Rhode Island at one of the last remaining grist mills. There are only 3 left. This one was built in 1703, and it's been owned by Bob and Diane Smith since 1964. Bob is going to be grinding today, and let's go watch him. This mill was set up early in the 18th century, less than 3 decades after Roger Williams set up the whole state of Rhode Island. And this mill is powered by water. At the end of the 18th century, water power in Rhode Island was used to produce textiles. That was the Industrial Revolution. But this mill had a much more basic function, food. The corn they ground, then and now, is white-capped flint corn. The settlers found this because the Indians were growing it. The kernels are very, very hard, and that's what gives the meal its distinctive flavor. Let's go and find Bob.
As a kid, I hung around grist mills all I could because I was fascinated by them. And while I didn't get a chance to run one or anything, I could watch the miller and learn all the different things and about the grinding of it and all that. So I always wanted a grist mill. And the Carpenter family ran this grist mill until 1964. They ran it about 100 years. 1964, Mr. Carpenter gave up and nobody in the family wanted it. So they were going to tear it down. But a local man in Wakefield, Mr. Robinson, he bought it just to preserve it. And he was a customer of mine at the dealership, and I kept bugging him to buy it because he didn't operate it. And he said, well, don't worry, you will. You'll be able to buy it. And that was in '64, and 20 years later he came to me and he says, you ready to buy the mill? And I said, let's go. Now this pond was hand dug.
A pond this big was hand dug?
It is. And the banks of the pond are all the dirt that was scooped out of the center to form the pond. Anytime I want water, I have it available, but when this gate is shut, it goes out to the ocean. And by the time we get back, this water will just about be down to the mill. And then you'll hear it rushing. And then when that pit is full, all of a sudden it's silent. That's when you know the pit's full and you can grind.
Well, we should head back then and start to make some meal.
You can hear that rushing in. The sluiceway between here and the pond is what's known as the head race. But we've got to wait now till we get the water up 15 inches from the top.
Is there any particular season when it's better to run the mill, or can you do it any time of the year if it's not frozen?
No, well, even if it's frozen, we'll take an axe up and chop the ice away from the gate. You know, we grind year round as long as there's sufficient water in the pond.
Yeah, I suppose that in 1703 they couldn't wait for spring to come. They had to use it.
They had to use it. Now here's a demonstration stone. You see this stone is 18 inches to almost 2 foot thick. Now what they did, when you put a brand new stone in, they drilled a hole, 2 holes right dead in the center of it. This hole here?
Yeah.
And there's one on the other side. And that is so that you can hook a crane on here, lift the stone up, turn it over so you can sharpen it.
Oh, okay.
Because this is the grinding surface, and this is the top stone. So this stone now is upside down.
Do you have to sharpen this stone occasionally?
Oh yeah, about every 2 years I sharpen it. Yeah.
And how do you do that?
Well, you sharpen it with a pick. You hold just a second, I'll get one to show you. One interesting part about that stone, the top stone in the mill, it's 1868. Now it was 24 inches thick when it was new, but now it's about 14 inches thick.
Oh wow!
So you get a little granite with your Johnny came in.
Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, you're eating a little.
The reason we know it's 14
granite.
inches thick, we can measure it, but the distance, this hole is no longer in the center now.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
See?
yeah.
So, now, this here, these are what you call lands and furrows. Now, the grinding is done on this flat surface. The corn drops in the center, is ground. Remember, this stone is upside down now. And the grinding is done here. And as this stone is turning, The bottom stone is stationary, that never turns. But
Does that have ridges in it, the bottom stone?
Oh yeah, it's just to cut just exactly like this.
Do you have to sharpen those too?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Now, the grinding is done here, and after the meal is ground, it drops into these furrows. And because this stone is turning 75, 80 revolutions a minute, centrifugal force brings the meal out to the edge. And when it does, we have 4 leather wipers, and there's 4 of these drilled into the stone. And once the meal is ground, drops into this furrow, centrifugal force throws it out. This wiper picks it up and drops it, carries it around, drops it down the chute. Now, these don't want to be perfectly smooth, of course, because corn is sliced. Cornmeal is actually sliced. So you've got to have some sharp edges here to slice it. All I'm doing is sharpening the edges, see? I'm making sharpness on that lance. That clear?
Oh yeah.
Granite. Feel it hitting your hand?
My face too, actually.
Yeah, hitting your face.
Yeah.
Now, years ago, if a fella come around, they specialize in grinding, sharpening grindstones, millstones. So the miller would look at his face, and it was all pitted. He knew he had several years of experience. That's how they told whether the guy knew what he was doing or not. But that's the way you sharpen the stone. Now, over a period of years, you might have to deepen this groove because you're taking some off here. And that's,
use the same tool?
No, use almost like a wood chisel. Now you got to remember that with the bottom stone stationary and the top stone turning, you mustn't let these stones touch. You're going to start a fire. That's how 90% of the mills burned down years ago. So the only distance between the rotating stone, top stone rotating, and the bottom stone is stationary, the only distance you maintain is not the thickness of a kernel of corn, but it's the thickness of the meal you're grinding. So the clearance between these two is in the thousands. And you can hear the stones if they start to touch. They get too close, you can hear them bumping, grinding. That's where the saying came from, keep your nose to grindstone. You can smell that granite burning if they touch. You smell that granite burning, damn it, do something. So keep your nose to grindstone.